The shocking truth about husbands, silenced secrets that will haunt you forever. The night air was thick with secrets, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Whispers echoed through the shadows, each one carrying with it twisted tales of betrayal and dark desires that would send chills down your spine. Did you ever think your husband might have a hidden life? A life full of veiled truths that could unravel your very existence? The truth buried beneath the mundane surface of everyday life was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. It started in the small town of Oak Ridge, where the sun-splashed mornings hid the darkness of moonlit revelations. Every couple looked perfect, the wives with their bright smiles, the husbands steady and strong. But behind each door lay untold stories. Did you know the Johnsons next door had secrets so deep it made even their dog, Rex, nervous? He barked at shadows, sensing the chaos swirling just out of sight. People said Mr. Johnson had been acting strange lately. Some whispered that he'd been sneaking out at night, while Mrs. Johnson spent hours staring out the window, her hands trembling around a steaming cup of coffee, tears glistening as they fell. As the weeks rolled on, rumors turned into raw tension. The way Mrs. Johnson would flinch at loud noises. You could feel the fear radiating off her like a palpable fog. What was she hiding? The chilling truth is, in the quiet of their home, there were walls that echoed more than just silence. They whispered of secrets that once spoken could bring the very foundation crashing down. And then there was the disappearance of Harry Thompson. One Thursday morning, he left for work, but he never came back. The townsfolk were rattled. Gossip spread like wildfire. Where could he have gone? Did his wife, Sarah, know more than she let on? She would sit by the phone, her fingers flicking nervously over the keys, waiting for it to ring. Her haunted eyes told a story of nights filled with dread. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Now, with the sun setting and casting long shadows, new secrets began to unravel. The town's pulse quickened as whispers merged into unsettling truths. The evening brought a sense of foreboding. There was something much darker lurking beneath the surface, and if the past had taught them anything, it was this: nobody escapes forever from the truth. What happens when the lies begin to surface? What dark secrets will be revealed? The answers could shatter lives, seal fates, and disrupt the very fabric of Oak Ridge forever. The night was heavy, pressing down on Oak Ridge like a weight that refused to lift. Sarah Thompson sat rigidly in the living room, the shadows wrapping around her like dark ribbons. The phone remained silent, a constant reminder of every unanswered question echoing in her mind. Where was Harry? Did he abandon her, or was something more sinister at play? Across the street, Mrs. Johnson peered through her curtains, her heart racing. The whispers had become louder, her paranoia growing roots that twisted deep within her. She could feel the weight of suspicion in the air, thick enough to choke on. Had anyone seen her own husband leave those late-night rendezvous? She was terrified that the truth about his absences was not only hidden from her but also hidden from herself. Suddenly, a loud bang shattered the stillness. Mrs. Johnson jumped, her trembling hands gripping the curtain. In the distance, Rex the dog barked furiously, barking at the darkness as if sensing something that the rest of them couldn't. Instinctively, she knew she had to check on Sarah. The bond of secrets between them felt both a comfort and a curse, but she couldn't ignore her gut any longer. After a moment of hesitation, she opened her front door, stepping into the cool air that danced around her like phantoms. The neighborhood, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison, each shadow a guilty secret waiting to emerge. She forced herself to walk across the pavement, her footsteps echoing in the silence. As she approached Sarah's house, a cold chill raced down her spine. What if they were not alone? Sarah heard the knock before she saw her visitor. When she opened the door, she found not just Mrs. Johnson, but the very weight of dread that hung in the air. "Have you heard anything?" Mrs. Johnson asked, her voice trembling. Sarah shook her head, unable to find her words. How could she explain the bubbling fear? The fear that something had happened to Harry, that the piece of their family life was a lie built on the ruins of infidelity. Before either of them could delve deeper into their thoughts, the piercing sound of sirens sliced through the night. Both women froze, eyes wide. The emergency lights spun, illuminating the darkness with flashes of red and blue. They exchanged worried glances. Was Harry hurt? Or worse, the sirens stopped just in front of Harry's workplace, the abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. The light strobing across the darkened windows created a haunting dance of shadows. A crowd began to gather, each murmuring a name, a theory, as the officers moved like silent phantoms among them. Sarah felt sick. She'd been attempting to navigate the labyrinth of her mind, haunted by her husband's secrets, but now her heart raced toward an unknown deadly conclusion. What lay hidden inside that factory? Mrs. Johnson placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, grounding herself as much as Sarah. "Please tell me we're just overreacting," Sarah whispered, the fear in her voice palpable. "Let us go," Mrs. Johnson urged, her own chest tight with urgency. The two women moved toward the commotion, their hearts pounding out a rhythm of dread that warned them to turn back. The truth, lurking like a predator, was bound to leap into their lives, ready to indiscriminately tear apart everything they held dear. As they approached, a figure stumbled out of the factory. Covered in grime and blood, he raised gaunt eyes to the crowd, eyes familiar yet chillingly cold. For a moment, the world stood still. What had he unearthed behind those steel doors? And as the crowd gasped collectively, a sinister realization dawned: this was just the beginning of a much darker tale waiting to unfold. What secrets awaited them now? The sight of the figure sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. She could barely breathe. Although she recognized the shadow of her husband, Harry, the bloodied face revealed a man transformed by something terrifying, something she couldn't comprehend. His lips parted, but no words came. The crowd surged forward, curiosity morphing into dread. Murmurs rippled through the gathering like the still surface of a pond disturbed by a stone. What happened? Is he all right? Where have you been? Mrs. Johnson squeezed Sarah's shoulder tighter, her eyes darting between the figure and the crowd, which had now turned electric with fear. Would they believe what Harry might say? What could he possibly explain with that haunted look in his eyes? Suddenly, Harry staggered forward, collapsing onto the frost-kissed ground. The impact echoed in the heavy silence. A ripple of shock swept through the crowd, and gasps were audible in the cold night air. Hesitation filled the space. Did anyone dare approach him? "Harry!" Sarah shouted, her voice breaking as she lunged toward him. A mix of panic and desperation fueled her legs as she pushed through the throng of bodies. Mrs. Johnson hesitated but followed closely behind, her heart thumping wildly. They reached Harry, who lay gasping, his chest heaving. What happened? Sarah cried, kneeling beside him, scanning his face for answers. As she searched his eyes, clarity pierced through the haze, and she saw more than confusion. There was regret, terror, and something deeper. "Sarah!" Harry croaked, his voice barely breaking the stillness. "You must listen." The sirens still wailed in the distance, but they faded into the background. Nothing else mattered but what lay between them. "Did you see?" He stopped, wincing as though the truth was a physical weight pressing down on him. The crowd grew restless, the murmurs turning into questioning roars. "What is going on?" someone yelled. "Stop playing games." Another voice cut through, loud and accusing. A man stepped forward, recognizing Harry from their shared past. "You were supposed to keep your head down." Harry's eyes flared with fear. "I didn't mean to." His voice quivered, like a frail whisper in a storm. "They're in the factory." "What do you mean they?" Sarah pressed, her heart racing. "What happened to you?" She felt the threads of their life fraying, fear weaving into the fabric of their existence. A flicker of something dark crossed his gaze, and suddenly, he grabbed her arm, pulling her closer. "They know about us. They know everything." The words landed like stones, heavy and foreboding. The crowd leaned closer, intrigued by the tension, but Sarah felt utterly detached. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over her. "Who knows?" Before he could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows of the factory. A tall, imposing man stepped into the light, his expression unreadable. The air shifted, thickened with uncertainty. He moved toward them with purpose as his voice sliced through the fear-laden night. "Harry, you've made a terrible mistake." For a split second, time froze. Whispers cascaded like an avalanche, darkness pooling around them. The truth was spiraling out of control, catapulted by Harry's cryptic confession and the arrival of this mysterious figure. What mistakes had they made? And what were the implications that could shatter everything they held dear? As Harry's grip on Sarah tightened, she could feel fear settle deep in her bones. What kind of monsters were lurking within the walls of that factory? In that moment, they were no longer just husband and wife but players in a dangerous game where secrets fed on their desperation. The choice was clear: face the unknown or turn away and live in fear forever. The air was electric, tension palpable, as Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. Only one truth was echoing in the back of her mind: they were in too deep now, and the only way forward was into that dark abyss. What lay behind the factory doors? What had Harry unearthed, and how would it change everything they knew? The crowd's murmurs intensified as the figure drew nearer, each step echoing like a funeral march. Sarah's heart raced faster, each pulse a desperate reminder of the gravity of the situation. The man, tall and broad-shouldered, wore a long coat that rippled in the cold breeze. A slow, cruel smile crept across his face, and Sarah felt bile rise in her throat. "Who are you?" she challenged, the words tasting of steel as they left her mouth. It felt absurd to confront this looming menace, but fear was giving way to anger. "Just a messenger," he replied smoothly, his voice as slick as the shadow he cast. "You didn't think you could play with fire and not get burned, did you?" Harry's grip on her arm tightened impossibly. "Please. Sarah, we have to go." "You can't leave," the figure said, his tone dripping with menace. "Not now that you've been discovered." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling despite her resolve. But the man only chuckled darkly, stepping closer. "The factory is ours, and so are the secrets within it. Your husband has breached our terms." Sarah looked at Harry, confusion fighting against the rising dread in her chest. "What have you done?" Harry's face twisted in anguish as he gasped for breath. "I overheard something I shouldn't have. It's bigger than we thought." The crowd around them shifted uneasily, their eyes flickering between Sarah, Harry, and the looming figure. Someone shouted for help, but the night swallowed the sound whole. "Enough," the figure commanded, raising a hand as if to silence the whispers. "You need to understand, Harry. You've upset the balance. We can't allow loose ends." A flicker of realization sparked in Sarah's mind, her pulse quickening with a sharp sense of urgency. "What do you mean by loose ends? What are you involved in?" The figure's eyes narrowed, his smile faltering only slightly. "You really want to know?" "Very well," he drawled, taunting her. "Your husband has struck a deal with forces you can't begin to comprehend. And now it's time for him to pay." The word sent a chill through Sarah, and she turned to Harry, searching his eyes for any sign of clarity. "Harry, please tell me this isn't true. We can fix this." Suddenly, he trembled violently, looking like a man on the edge of losing everything. "Sarah, I thought I was helping, but I only made it worse. They can't be stopped." As those words sank in, the figure spoke again, this time with an edge that cut through Sarah's frantic thoughts. "You have a choice now, Sarah. You can walk away and forget everything you think you know, or you can join him in this mess. But I promise you, there's no going back." Sarah's heart raced as her world spun around her. The factory loomed behind them, a dark specter filled with unknown horrors. Could she turn away from Harry, or had their fate already sealed in this brutal negotiation? As if sensing the shifting winds of her decision, the figure leaned closer, menace glinting in his eyes. "Choose wisely, because the clock's ticking. Either way, the truth will catch up with you." The crowd began to murmur again, voices colliding in a hushed chaos, and as she stood there, the weight of the moment crashed down. Behind the closed doors of the factory lay secrets that would shatter her life as she knew it. Time hung heavy in the air, filled with unspoken terror and the heart-wrenching fragility of choice. With every breath, the ground beneath Sarah began to feel less solid. Which path would seal their fate once and for all? And just then, a gunshot rang out in the distance, shattering the electric tension, and everyone's heads turned toward the sound, hearts pounding with a new, imminent dread. What else lurked behind those factory walls, waiting to be unleashed? And would they survive to face it together? The air turned electric, crackling with fear as the gunshot echoed, slicing through the murmur of the crowd. The figure's smile widened, teeth gleaming like shards of broken glass. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. It was impossible to tell where the shot had come from, but the chilling certainty wrapped around her like a noose. "Stay close," Harry murmured, his voice shaky but resolute. He pulled her protectively toward him, but the grip of uncertainty ensnared them both. "Who fired that shot?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper, eyes darting around, scanning the faces around them. Panic was spreading like wildfire. "Does it matter?" The figure interjected, unfurling his arms in mock exasperation. "Another warning, another reminder that your husband's actions will have consequences." Before Sarah could respond, the crowd parted slightly, and figures began to emerge from the shadows, their faces obscured by hooded sweatshirts. The atmosphere shifted, thickening with dread. Peering closely, Sarah saw the glint of weapons in their hands. "Time to choose, Sarah." The figure taunted, his voice a low hiss. "You can stand with your husband or face the music alone. But know this, the choice you make will inscribe your fate into the very fabric of this night." Harry turned his pleading eyes to Sarah, desperation pinning him in place. "We have to go. We can't let them take us." His voice shook, tears welled in the corners of his eyes. "Run!" shouted a voice from the crowd, and suddenly, panic erupted. People were scrambling, some toward the exits, others back into the safety of darkness behind the factory walls. And in that chaos, Sarah felt a pull of darkness beckoning her, whispering promises of safety if she just turned her back on it all. But could she turn her back on Harry? The sight of his frightened face pierced her heart. Then, a flash of movement caught her eye. The man in the long coat reached into his own jacket and pulled out something glimmering a badge. In a split second, he raised it high, revealing it to be a law enforcement insignia. "Stop!" he ordered, voice booming with authority. "You are all now part of a crime scene. Stand down." The crowd froze, the fear turning into confusion. Whispers erupted again, but now they were mingled with shock and surprise. Were they being detained? Had the nightmare morphed into something even darker? "Harry, what does he mean? You knew about this." She felt the ground trembling beneath her. Harry only shook his head, torn between loyalty to her and the truth that had been festering in the shadows. "I didn't think it would come to this. I didn't know they were watching." The figure advanced, now flanked by those hooded figures, who revealed themselves to be armed with weapons that glistened dangerously under the dim streetlights. "Bring her forward," he commanded the hooded enforcers. "She needs to hear the whole story before it's too late." No! Harry shouted, stepping to defend her. With a sudden movement, he pulled Sarah toward him, ready to fight, but the figures tightened around them, weapons drawn. Let us make it easier, the figure sneered, eyes narrowing menacingly. Either she hears the truth or both of you become another loose end. Fear coiled around Sarah like a serpent, squeezing tighter. A choice loomed before her, dark and formless. Did she dare step forward into a web of secrets? As the night held its breath, a sudden scream rent the air, and in a flash, another gunshot rang out, this time closer, amid the thrumming chaos. Would they discover the truth lurking within those factory walls, or was it too late to save themselves from the fallout? In that moment, decisions collided, teetering on the edge of calamity. What awaited them in the depths of the unknown? The crowd spun into a frenzy. Fear traded places with chaos as screams and shouts melded into a cacophony of terror. Sarah's heart raced, pounding in her chest like a drum. She searched Harry's face, but all she could see was the panic swirling in his eyes, reflected back at her. "Get down!" Harry shouted, pushing her behind a rusted metal column just as another shot rang out, this one ricocheting violently against the wall. The metallic clanging echoed in her ears, drowning out everything else. She was submerged in a sea of dread, every instinct screaming for them to flee. "Hurry!" Harry wrapped an arm around her, feeling the cold sweat on her skin. He glanced toward the figure, who stood, a looming shadow against the dim streetlights, watched them with a predatory glee. "What do we do?" Sarah gasped, her breath trembling in the heavy air. "We have to get out of here," he insisted, his grip tightening. "But we can't cause a scene," or they'll. Before he could finish, the figure's laughter cut through the chaos. "Running is futile. The truth lurks just beyond the shadows." His words dripped with poison, aimed straight at them. From behind the column, Sarah caught sight of the hooded figures advancing, weapons aimed, their movements quick and deliberate. She shivered at the sight. "Harry, we can't just sit here." Another agonized scream pierced the din, and the crowd surged with renewed panic. "We need to move." She pressed, pulling at his arm. But something deep inside her hesitated. Was it curiosity or fear? This man knew something. Was she truly willing to plunge into the unknown? Time stretched unbearably, each second a heavy weight pressing down on her shoulders. "All right," Harry finally whispered, eyes darting, assessing their options. "On my count, we bolt for that side exit." Just as he began to count, another shot exploded in the air, accompanied by a startling cry. The crowd momentarily silenced, swallowing back its dread, as if suspended in time. "Please, not like this." A voice broke through the tension, a woman's voice, filled with raw desperation. The crowd shifted slightly, revealing a woman on the ground, fighting to breathe, blood pooling beneath her. "Darlene!" shouted someone in the crowd, rushing forward. The chaos erupted anew, people pushing and shoving, the instinct to save drowning out all reason. "Look!" Harry pointed as the shooter, cloaked in shadow, faded into the chaos. The man in the long coat seemed untouched by the turmoil around him, a puppet master orchestrating the disaster. "They're here for a reason," Harry muttered as guilt flickered in his eyes. "All of this is about me." "Don't say that." Sarah pulled him closer, drawing strength from his presence. "We'll figure it out together. But right now, we need to focus on getting out of here." As Harry nodded, the ringing in Sarah's ears subsided, only to be replaced by a chilling realization. The man had mentioned consequences, and they were swiftly spiraling on a course she could barely comprehend. With terror coursing through their veins, they darted toward a narrow passage, back against the cold brick. Adrenaline pushed them forward, any semblance of plan evaporating into the night's abyss. Then, a voice echoed from the shadows, deep and sardonic. "You can run, but the truth will find you, as it always does." Every fiber within Sarah twisted in fear. She turned to Harry, her eyes wide. "What does he mean by that?" But before Harry could answer, a figure emerged from the darkness, their face obscured by a mask, eyes gleaming with a knowing fear. You have no idea what you're getting into in that moment. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet, as if the world was collapsing. The truth was closer than she thought, and lurking beyond that, danger too profound to fathom. Just as they braced for what was to come, the masked figure lunged toward them, a blade gleaming ominously in the dim light. Would they escape the grim clutches of fate, or would the knife's edge cut deeper than they dared to imagine? The figure lunged, and time froze for Sarah. The sharp glint of the knife filled her vision, almost entrancing in its menace. Harry reacted first, pulling her closer, shielding her with his body. The figure swung. A flash of steel, a rush of wind, then the deafening impact of metal against flesh. "Get back!" Harry shouted, shoving Sarah aside as he grappled with the masked attacker. A surge of adrenaline shot through her, igniting her instinct to survive. She couldn't just stand there, she needed to fight back. Scrambling for her footing, she spotted a metal pipe just a few feet away. The sharp edges glinted under the flickering streetlight. With trembling hands, she lunged for it, clutching it tightly, ready to strike if necessary. The chaos of the crowd curled around her like smoke, a whirl of desperate faces and frantic screams. The masked figure twisted under Harry's grip, the knife inches away from him. "You can't stop it. You don't even know what you're fighting." The words were a hissing challenge, venomous and dark. "Stop what?" Harry demanded, using every ounce of strength to push the figure against the wall. "What do you want from us? Everything you've lived for, it's all a lie." The assailant's laughter was chilling, echoing in the night like a haunted melody. "Enough!" Sarah shouted, brandishing the pipe. With one swift motion, she swung hard, aiming for where the figure's ribs met his coat. The metal connected with a sharp thud, and the figure staggered, surprise coursing through him. For a fleeting moment, Sarah reveled in the thrill of her action, but it was short-lived. "Run!" Harry yelled, pushing the masked figure back with a fierce shove. He grabbed Sarah's arm, leading her deeper into the passageway. They weaved through the tight confines, desperate for escape, yet the shadows felt alive around them, whispering hidden truths and dire consequences. "Are you okay?" Harry panted, worry etching his features as he pulled her closer, keeping her in sight. "I will be," she managed, though uncertainty weighed more heavily on her than the pipe in her grip. What did he mean by a lie? "I don't know." Harry snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. "We just need to." Suddenly, a commotion erupted behind them. The crowd had broken into two paths, forcing figures to flood into the narrow alley like water through a crack. The noise escalated to a thunderous roar, a perfect camouflage for their escape but also a dire warning of the chaos they were tangled in. "Look out!" Sarah shouted as a dark figure emerged from the crowd. Another hooded person, joining the fray, their eyes darting this way and that, searching for someone. "Go!" Harry commanded again. They raced forward, but not without glancing back. The masked figure was stirring, regained strength, the blade glinting ominously again under the weak light. There were more of them, and they were hunting. As they reached the end of the passage, Sarah spotted a door ajar, illuminating a hint of safety within. But what lay beyond? "Is it safe?" she asked, breathless. "Only one way to find out." Harry gripped the edge of the door, pushing it open. In that moment, something inside her twisted. Could they really trust what lay beyond? Would they find allies or more enemies waiting to drag them into the depths of despair? They took a step forward, crossing into the unknown, but doubt gnawed at her. Was this all just the beginning? And just as they entered, frozen in hesitation, a voice echoed from the shadows behind them, dripping with malice. "You think you can escape the truth? You're already in over your head." Sarah's heartbeat quickened. What truth awaited them, lurking just beyond that threshold? And what horrors had they yet to face? The door swung open, revealing a dimly lit room that felt both inviting and ominous. Sarah stepped inside, her heart pounding like war drums. The air was thick with dust and the faint scent of mildew. The walls were lined with shelves crammed full of old books and strange artifacts, their purposes obscured by shadows. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Harry called softly, his voice barely above a whisper. The way he leaned against the door, ready to bolt at a moment's notice, sent chills racing down her spine. "Keep your voice down," Sarah hissed, her instincts prickling. "We don't know where we are. Or who else is here." They sneaked further into the room, and Sarah's eyes adjusted to the gloom. A table in the center was cluttered with papers, half-opened books, and a flickering candle that cast shadows that danced like specters on the walls. She instinctively stepped closer, her curiosity overpowering her fear. What secrets lay within those pages? "Look at this." Harry pointed hesitantly to a notebook, its spine cracked and pages frayed. As Sarah reached for it, the hairs on her arms stood up. The sense of being watched clawed at her. "Wait," she urged, pulling back. "What if it's a trap?" The words felt heavy, but the insistence to learn the truth burned inside her. They both felt the weight of the masked figure's taunt. It resonated in their minds like a dark bell tolling. "Do you hear that?" Harry's stance shifted, ear turned toward a distant sound. A low, rhythmic thumping reached them, echoing like a heartbeat. The thump grew louder, matching the quickening pace of their hearts. "Maybe we should leave," Sarah whispered. She strained to listen. The noise morphed, becoming more like chanting drawn-out words, foreign yet familiar, stirring something deep within her. "Or find out what it is," Harry countered, determination flashing in his eyes. "We can't back down now." The conviction in Harry's voice rattled her, and despite her better judgment, she nodded. Together, they crept toward a large archway at the back of the room. The chanting echoed louder, reverberating through the air like a dark symphony. The atmosphere thickened, suffocating, as if the very air was pregnant with secrets begging to be revealed. As they approached, Sarah sensed movement from the shadows behind the archway. She stopped, holding her breath, the world narrowing to the sound of her heartbeat. A figure emerged, cloaked in darkness, features obscured. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but Harry's grip tightened around her wrist. "Stay back," he warned, stepping slightly in front of her, but the figure raised a hand. "We mean no harm." The voice was smooth yet unsettling, each word laced with an undertone of deceit. "But if you seek the truth, you must understand the cost." "What cost?" Sarah shot back, her voice steadier than she felt. The figure stepped closer, pulling back its hood. Sarah's breath caught. The face staring back at her was familiar, a haunting reminder of a life once lived, a face she thought she'd left behind. "Sarah." Harry's voice cracked, disbelief etched across his features. "How is that?" "Listen carefully," the figure interrupted, urgency twisting its features. "What you've uncovered tonight is only the surface. You have to decide how far you're willing to go, because the truth, it comes at a price. You've been following us?" Sarah's mind raced, grappling with the shocking impossibility. "What do you know? What you believe isn't what it seems," it insisted, eyes wide with conviction. "You'll be drawn deeper into the darkness unless you can confront what lies within yourself. Only then can you fight." Sarah's thoughts churned, confusion swirling amid the dread. Darkness? Within herself? What did that even mean? Before she could voice her questions, a loud crash echoed from the entrance. The door they had entered swung open violently, and another group flooded in, their silhouettes stark against the light from the chaotic scene outside. "Get down!" Someone shouted, their voice slicing through the tension. Panic ignited between them. The room morphed into a battleground of shadows and secrets. Sarah's heart thundered as she realized they were running out of time. "Run!" she screamed, fear propelling her into action. And in that moment, caught between truths and lies, Sarah understood this was just the beginning. They were ensnared in a web far more intricate than they had ever imagined. What awaited them in those shadows, and would they find the strength to fight through the chaos? The room erupted into chaos as masked figures charged inside, their intentions shrouded in darkness. Sarah's instincts screamed at her to escape, to break free from this terrifying web, but Harry's hand gripped hers with fierce determination. "Go!" he shouted, pulling her away from the archway. Together, they darted towards the nearest corner as the newcomers flooded past them. Sarah's heart raced. The chanting, once a distant chorus, now merged with the shouts of the intruders, creating a cacophony that threatened to explode. "Stay close," Harry urged, his voice strained over the rising din. They ducked behind an ancient bookshelf, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Sarah's mind raced as shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, blurring the line between friend and foe. "What do we do now?" she whispered, breathless. "Wait for the right moment," he replied, his eyes darting toward the commotion unfolding in the center of the room. As the figures engaged in heated exchanges, their voices sharp and angry, Sarah's gaze fell back on the cloaked figure. It hadn't moved, its intense stare fixed upon her, yet now it felt strangely distant. Did it know what was coming? Did it understand the nature of this gathering? Then an explosion of sound shattered her thoughts. A chair toppled, and papers scattered like leaves caught in a storm. A figure fell, and she caught a glimpse of a flash of metal, a weapon. The realization hit her like ice water. They weren't just here for words, this was a fight, a struggle for something bigger than her and Harry. Dimly, she recalled the figure's warning about confronting what lay within herself. Her mind buzzed with questions, but now wasn't the time to dwell. "We need to move, Harry," she said, urgency edging her words. He nodded, but as they prepared to slip away, the hooded figure called out. "You have a choice." Its voice sliced through the noise, capturing everyone's attention. The room fell silent momentarily. Unmask the truth, or bury it in blood. A ripple of shock fused with energy swept through the crowd as eyes turned toward Sarah and Harry. The urgency of the moment pressed against her chest like a vice. She felt exposed, a beacon of vulnerability amid the confusion. "What does that even mean?" Harry muttered, fear creeping into his tone. Before she could respond, one of the masked figures charged at them, a weapon gleaming in hand. Sarah's heart dropped. She had no time to think. Reacting instinctively, she yanked Harry with her, propelling them toward the heavy wood door that led out of the madness. "Run!" she screamed again, adrenaline lending strength to her legs. They barreled toward the exit as more shouts erupted behind them, the force of the chaos nearly swallowing them whole. As they burst through the door and into the cold night air, Sarah gasped, her lungs burning. They staggered forward, glancing back just in time to see flashes of light and hear the resounding echoes of anger and betrayal. The masked figures' silhouettes loomed, shadows chasing them into the darkness, but what lay ahead felt just as dangerous. The street was a jumble of shadows, distant streetlights casting long, eerie shapes. "Where do we go?" she panted, shivering as a chill crept up her spine. "Anywhere but here," Harry replied, urgency fueling his movements. "We can't risk being caught." Just as they began to dash down the street, a voice called out, hauntingly familiar. "Sarah!" "Harry! Don't run away, you need to listen." Sarah halted, her breath catching. She turned slowly, the face ahead igniting a whirlpool of emotions. It was someone she had trusted, feared, loved, all wrapped in one. "You! How did you please?" the person begged, desperation mingling with shadows. "You don't understand the truth hidden in the chaos. You think you're safe, but you have no idea who you're up against." Fear consumed Sarah, but something deeper, a wild hope urged her to step closer, even as danger wrapped itself around them like a noose. "What are you trying to say?" "Everything you thought you knew," the figure hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "Is about to unravel." Her heart pounded. What could they possibly find out next? With the air thick with uncertainty, she knew this was far from over. They might have escaped one threat, but far darker forces were in play, and the truth waited just beyond the shadows. Would they have the courage to face it? The dawn broke over Oakridge, casting pale light through the lingering shadows of the night's frenzied chaos. The streets, once teeming with life, felt eerily silent, but Sarah and Harry knew the calm was merely an illusion. They had escaped the factory, but the truth was still shackled in dark corners of their minds. As they stumbled into a deserted park, panting, the horrors of the past night still hung heavily in the air. The echoes of gunfire and frantic screams pulsed in their thoughts. They needed answers, but how could they dig through the debris of manipulation and lies? "Do you think we can trust her?" Sarah asked, referring to the familiar face that had called out to them in the street. She used to be part of their world. Harry's face darkened. If she knew anything, she'd have spilled it then and there. "We can't afford to believe anyone blindly." There was a fierce determination in his voice, and Sarah felt her heart swell with love and fear for him. But the urgency of the moment pressed against them. They had to decide where to go next, and every option felt laced with danger. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, slicing through the tense silence. She glanced at the screen and saw an unknown number flashing ominously. "What if it's a trap?" she murmured. "Answer it." "It might be the information we need," Harry urged, taking a deep breath. Sarah accepted the call. "Hello?" The voice on the other end sent shivers down her spine. "Meet me at the old diner. I can help you. It's about Harry. You need to understand the choices you've made." The line went dead, and Sarah stood frozen, heart racing. "Did you hear that?" "Who was it?" Harry's tone turned sharp. "Someone who claims to have information about the choices we've made about you," Sarah blurted out, unsure of how to proceed. Harry's eyes darkened. "No. It's too dangerous. We can't just go running back into the snake pit." "Then what do we do? We can't just ignore this." Sarah felt her pulse quickening. "What if this is the only chance we have?" He hesitated, then took a step closer, his voice fragile. "We'll go. But we need to be careful. If they know we're looking for the truth, they'll stop at nothing to keep us from finding it." Determination surged between them like electricity. They moved through the streets, shadows flickering across their path, uncertainty weaving its narrative into their story. When they arrived at the diner, the neon sign flickered, casting a sickly glow that felt more like a warning than a welcome. Dust hung in the air, thick and musty, as they stepped inside. An old jukebox in the corner played a haunting melody that made Sarah's skin crawl. The diner's familiar warmth had turned cold, and every creak in the floorboard felt magnified. "Stay alert," Harry whispered, scanning the dimly lit space. "We don't know who we can trust." The back door swung open, and the figure from the street stepped in. She took a moment to survey the scene, her eyes locking onto Sarah's with urgency. "You came good." Her voice was shaky, revealing a layer of fear underneath her composed demeanor. "What do you know?" Harry demanded, taking control of the conversation. "We don't have time for riddles." The woman crossed her arms, fidgeting with her sleeve. "It's all connected: the factory, the shooting, and your husband's role in it. You need to understand what he's been involved in." "Stop acting like a vague shadow," Sarah interrupted, panic simmering under her surface. "Just tell us." Taking a deep breath, the woman stepped closer, her eyes darting to the door. "Harry, you're wrapped tighter than you know in something so dangerous. I tried to warn you once, back when you first got pulled in. You were so eager to be part of it, but now you're in over your head." Harry shifted uneasily, but before he could respond, the woman continued. "You can't take back what's been done. But you can still choose how it ends." "What are you talking about?" Sarah pressed, frustration boiling over. "They know you're coming. You won't just walk out of here unharmed. The truth is more dangerous than you can imagine, it's a weapon that people will kill for. Who will? Harry clenched his fists. Stop beating around the bush. There's no time, she pleaded. But know this, if you want to survive, you have to confront the shadows inside the lies that built your lives and expose them. The weight of her words fell heavily, and Sarah felt a lump forming in her throat. So, what do we do? You need to decide whose side you're on, the woman whispered. You can either fight to uncover the truth or bury yourselves in it. But whatever you do, know they are watching. They want to let you get away again. Underneath the diner's fluorescent lights, the tension thickened. The past couldn't be rewritten, the mistakes already tarnished their lives, but a choice hovered over them. We'll fight, Harry finally said, determination hardening his features. We won't lose ourselves to this darkness. Not again. As they stepped back out into the daylight, a sense of purpose surged within them. Unraveling the truth would carve a path through the chaos, revealing allies and foes alike. The battle against shadows might be fierce, but arm in arm, they were ready to face it all. There was no turning back now this time, they would face the storm head-on, maybe they would find the answers they sought. Or maybe they'd uncover deeper layers of betrayal that threatened to destroy everything they had ever known. Yet as they moved forward together, fueled by love and an unquenchable thirst for truth, they felt lighter, ready to confront whatever dark secrets awaited them in the depths. This was just the beginning of a journey through the darkness to find the light. Now it's your turn. Don't forget to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will shake you to your core. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and keep the good story vibes flowing. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about how this ends. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. The truth awaits.